Talofalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Swiswiki. Coming up.
Why is it that Fiji is hit with 32% when some of the other Pacific Island nations are only hit with 10%?
The Pacific countries on Trump's tariffs list. Also,
we are standing with ASB Polyfest and looking to a bright future ahead of us.
Another wet day for day 3 of Polyfest, and Naked Samoans face backlash over a poster. But first, the New Zealand Navy chief says it's a sad time for the force as the Court of Inquiry releases damning findings into the grounding of HMNZS Manawanui last year. The incident off the coast of Samoa in October caused the vessel to catch fire and sink. The Court of Inquiry released a 120-page report on Friday afternoon, finding the crew and commanding officer were undertrained, the boat wasn't up to the task it was doing, and the person in charge of the ship was distracted. At a media conference this afternoon, Chief of Navy Rear Admiral Garen Golding said the Navy works in difficult and challenging environments. So if people make mistakes, they have significant consequences.
It's a bad day for the Navy. Our reputation has taken a hit, and as part of that, owning it, and we need to learn from it and get after it.
He said the Navy will have a relentless focus on continued improvement. Some Pacific islands stand to be hit hard by US tariffs, including a few that aren't even independent sovereign countries. Fiji is getting the highest tariff in the Pacific of 32%, then Nauru at 30%. Norfolk Island, which is part of Australia, has been given a 29% tariff, while Australia has been given only 10%. Caleb Fotheringham has more.
Pacific economic expert Adam Wolfenden with the Pacific Network on Globalization says time will tell what the tariffs mean for the Pacific.
Full impact for each country on each major export area is sort of to be determined, but ultimately it's quite a big hit to a lot of those countries, particularly someone like Fiji, who's quite dependent on the US as an export market.
The United States will impose a base tariff of 10% on all foreign imports with a maximum rate of 50%. The tariffs were worked out on a formula based on if the US sees a trade deficit. Fiji, for example, exports large amounts of water through Fiji Water and kava to the US, so were given a high tariff compared to other Pacific nations like New Zealand and Australia. There were some head-scratching places on the list though. Tokelau, a non-self-governing territory of New Zealand with a population of about 1,500 people, was given a 10% tariff, while Norfolk Island, an Australian territory, was given a 29% tariff despite Australia only getting 10%. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says it shows nowhere on earth is safe from the tariffs.
I'm not sure what Norfolk Island major exports are to the United States and why it's been singled out, but it has on the table which is there. But it is across the board. It's quite clear that the Trump administration was determined to do this.
Mr Wolfenden says there was no common sense approach taken.
The inclusion of these territories, to me, is indicative of that they don't really understand what they're doing. They're just doing this in a very broad, en masse approach, which means that you have these mistakes included in these formal announcements and policies from the US.
But the Chamber of Commerce for Norfolk Island has taken it as a win for independence. The island previously had a significant level of autonomy from Australia, but was absorbed directly into the country's local government system in 2015. A statement from the Chamber of Commerce has been voiced.
The classification of Norfolk Island as distinct from Australia in this tariff decision reinforces what the Norfolk Island community has long asserted. Norfolk Island is not an extension of Australia.
The owner of Fiji's biggest kava exporter, Simon Lomaloma, says American consumers will be the main people paying for the high 32% tariff.
It's going to be Americans that are going to end up paying the additional cost, but it'll have a flow-on effect back to the export industry for us and for other kava exporters and farmers as a whole.
He says rural households will also feel it.
Why is it that Fiji is hit with 32% when some of the other Pacific Island nations are only hit with 10%, much the same as how New Zealand is? And although we don't want increased tariffs, 10% would be a lot more reasonable than jumping up to 32%.
Fiji's Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Biman Prasad says he's attempting to bring the tariff down to the 10% base level. Mr Wolfenden says in the immediate term it's unlikely the minister will have any luck.
Fiji's been very quick to highlight, I think, the nature of the tariffs that they apply to US goods, and they've done a really good job on explaining, the rates that they apply and the sort of the overall weighted average, which they say is 1.8% on US imports.
He says the Pacific will now be looking outside of the US for trade opportunities.
I think what this announcement has done is shown the unpredictability of the US and shattered the confidence that that's a stable market to export to. So for a lot of countries who have exports to the US, now would be the time where they would desperately be looking for other markets that are more predictable and more stable.
Big crowds still turned out to support Polyfest at the Monaco Sports Bowl on Friday, despite the bad weather. The wet weather didn't even stop some politicians and the Governor-General, Dame Cindy Kiro, from visiting. Moira Tuleipa-Taylor was there.
The Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters led the government delegation to Polyfest today. The Minister for Pacific Peoples, Dr. Shane Reti, started his visit on the Cook Island stage.
And then went down and watched the Tonga celebrations as well. And we're moving through some of the other villages, and what you sensed despite the rain, you felt the spirit come through. The rain hasn't daunted the desire to be here to celebrate Pacific culture and the aspirations and ambitions of all these 11,000 secondary school students. So that is what I have seen, touched and felt here today.
When questioned about government funding for the event, he had this to say.
Look, I'm very pleased to be a significant funder with the Ministry for Pacific Peoples, and as their minister, very pleased to be able to increase the contribution that we made from last year. We remain supportive of this festival, the biggest Polynesian festival in the world.
Members of the Labour Party were also there today. Labour leader Chris Hipkin says they were at the Samoa stage where it stood no chance against the weather.
We saw Kelston boys coming on for the first performance of the day. They've been waiting in the rain for a long time for things to get started, but still that was not going to slow them down. They were still absolutely determined, and I just think it really kind of summed up the vibe of this event, which is that whatever the weather throws at everybody, they're still going to make the most of it.
Mr Hipkin says there's a lot to be proud of.
The fact that we have events like Polyfest, we also had Pasifika a few weeks ago as well, just events that all New Zealanders can get behind.
He says it's really important that events like Polyfest continue. A councillor for Manukau, Lotu Fuli, says for Manukau, Polyfest is one of its most significant events.
It happens every year. It's every school in the area marks it on their calendar. I know our families look forward to it from the start of the year, and for some of our schools, they start preparing for it the year before. It's such a huge event for Manukau.
She says Auckland Council is committed to Polyfest.
With the local board, we provide the Manukau Sports Bowl as the venue and the home for Polyfest, and that will continue on into the future, I'm pretty sure, for as long as they want it. Yeah, so just that commitment from us as Auckland Council that we are standing with ASB Polyfest and looking to a bright future ahead of us.
The weather has been a challenge for the organisers, and earlier today, the Māori Stage Division 2 was cancelled after weather damage to the stage and grounds. Stephen Hargreaves, chair of the ASB Polyfest Trust and principal of Maclean's College, says sadly the weather has made it impossible to go ahead safely.
So they're going to have to make some other arrangements so that those performances can take place at a later date. The way Polyfest is structured, there is no saving day, there is no postponement day, so the other stages are trying to forge ahead as best they can with the weather, but Māori Stage have made the call to postpone Division 2.
Organisers say Division 1 on the Māori Stage will go ahead tomorrow.
An exciting weekend of rugby is in store for both Njua and Moana Pasifika fans in the Super Rugby competition. On Saturday afternoon, Moana Pasifika will be attempting to record their first back-to-back win when they host the Waratahs at the North Harbour Stadium in Albany at 2:05 p.m. New Zealand time. The Fijian Draw will also be in action, hosting the Crusaders at the National Stadium in Suva around 4:35 p.m. And on Sunday, the Fijian Draw women will meet the Reds in Ballymore, Brisbane in the first semi-final of the Super Rugby W competition. Elisa Tora has more.
Moana Pasifika shocked everyone last weekend when they defeated the Crusaders in Christchurch for their first away win in 2025 and their second win in this year's series. Head coach Fa'alongo Tana Umanga says the win has given the players a huge boost as they prepare for the Waratahs, but sounded caution, adding his Warriors have to keep their focus on the game.
Yeah, that's the kind of mark of respect that they've earned through performance. And look, again, we just got to work on what we can control, make sure the boys don't get caught up with what people are saying. We just got to keep our feet on the ground, heads in the game, and again, like I keep saying, just go back to what we know.
Umanga says the Waratahs were beaten by the Hurricanes in Wellington last Friday night, will be out to redeem themselves, and his players will need to be up to the task.
We were in their shoes, last week, and we know what it's like when you've got your tail spanked, and so we know where they're coming from. And with the calibre of player that they have in their side and the calibre of their coaching staff, we know they're coming over here looking to take an opportunity and take it to us. So again, there's another reason why we can't be complacent, because they're a quality side, and we've seen that through the season. And it'll be interesting, but we've got to get up for it.
Moana Pasifika captain Adi Savea says they have left the win against the Crusaders behind them and are focused on nailing the next job.
I know with us, for our team and our brothers, is that confidence is a big thing. But at the same time, to be relentless and ruthless, you can celebrate it in your own ways, but in a game, you got to just be next task, next moment, focused. Along with the flair and the confidence. Yeah, the boys are excited, but also on our toes as well, and we know what's coming up this weekend.
Meanwhile, in Suva, Fijian Draw head coach Glenn Jackson says there is so much at stake for them when they face the Crusaders in Suva midway through the competition.
Two hurting teams, so the strategy is no different to every time we're playing. We've got to get up, we've got to put pressure on them, we've got to make big hits, and we've got to try and look after our ball. We know discipline's always talked about, but discipline against the Crusaders is massive. We don't want to give them free entries into the 22 where we're defending mauls. Can hang on to the ball and really look after it and just trust what we're good at.
Fijian Draw women assistant coach Apenisana Silasila says their Super Rugby W semi-final clash against the Reds in Brisbane on Sunday afternoon will be a do-or-die game for the team.
With so much respect, we're going into the Reds game in Brisbane, knowing full well how they will be in front of their home crowd and the advantage that they have. But the girls have been prepped very clinically on how to approach this match, with the fact that it is a semi-final, it is a do-or-die game, and it's mentally been put through the phases in the week.
Other Super Rugby matches this weekend will see the Chiefs face the Reds, Blues hosting the Hurricanes at Eden Park, and the Force taking on the Highlanders. In the Super Rugby W competition, the other semi-final will feature defending champions, the Waratahs, taking on the Western Force, also on Sunday afternoon.
Comedy legends Naked Samoans are staging a reunion with their all-new show, The Last Temptation of the Naked Samoans, as part of the 2025 New Zealand International Comedy Festival. But their anticipated return to the stage has not been without controversy. A poster promoting their show has had some backlash from members of the Pasifika community. The image used on the poster, which has now been taken down, depicted Jesus' Last Supper, with the 12 disciples replaced by the Naked Samoan members. Addressing the backlash for the first time, I spoke with writer and actor Oscar Kitely. Hey, thank you so much, Oscar, for coming in and doing the sit-down talanoa with us. I know that you've got a busy schedule, but first of all, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's been a funny old week since we announced our show on Monday, but yeah, I'm doing okay, thanks.
How are preparations coming along for the comedy festival?
Good. We haven't done a show since 2018, so we're motivated by just wanting to do comedy on stage together as the Naked Samoans, and we're just firing that up, working on the script this month, and then we'll get into rehearsals next month. Yeah,
it's been a while since you guys have been together. I mean, what led to the decision of you guys coming back together and doing a show?
You know, even though we all individually do different things, for us, our favourite thing is working together, and the cool thing about on stage is, we're in charge. It's just us and the audience, and that was the motivation. We just love doing shows, and we treat every show like it could be our last, because life's short.
Absolutely. And not giving too much away, what can audiences expect from The Last Temptations?
Well, the kind of tagline that we've come up with is that it's a 60-minute dark comedy about denial, miracles, and community service. That's all I can say, really.
Cool.
You have to buy a ticket. May 20 to 24 at the New Zealand International Comedy Festival.
As you've said, it's been a week of promoting the show, and I know you guys spent the first few days talking about it. You guys went on Flavour, and then the poster dropped. Did you anticipate the heated reactions that it was going to receive?
No, I guess. Being the Naked Samoans, actually this month, 27 years ago, was our first ever show. And we've been offending and upsetting people ever since, really. But we didn't expect that. When we first saw it, we thought, has Heto got his burner accounts again and leaving funny messages, little phase he went through. But he assured that only some of them were his. And then when we saw the reaction and we saw how it was being taken, it was never our intention to mock Jesus or God or the Last Supper scripture. But when we saw that that's how it was being taken by some in our community, we made the decision to take it down. It went up on Monday and we took it down Tuesday night. And then, but I guess other people saw it and then spread it, showing other people. And, I guess the rage spread. But we took it down as soon as we knew that it was causing upset.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to what you said about Naked Samoans offending people in the past, Pacific community in particular.
That's not to detract from the hurt and upset that it's caused. I'm not excusing that. I'm just saying that's the context of us as artists.
Yeah. Well, this Facebook comment stood out to me, and I quote...
Oh, don't tell me. I'm trying to not read them. But yeah, okay, sure, quote.
It's just wrong, especially for us Polynesians and Christians. It's embarrassing. These guys have been in the industry for ages. They should know better already. What's your response to that?
Oh, we probably should. Our robust system of checks and balances badly let us down in this sense. We should have known that some people would take it that way, despite us just referencing a painting that we thought would be a funny image. But and we have friends and family and also associates, people that have worked for us, who are probably also offended and who might never comment. And so it's acknowledgement of their upset that we decided to take it down, but it's taken on a life of its own, because that's the world we live in now.
Yeah, as you said, it's not the first time that you've received criticism at this level.
Lord. We've been getting it since we started.
Yeah.
Academics, educators, our own people, Balangi journalists, telling us we've let down our community. We've had it our whole careers, but we can understand how some people would have looked at this and went, you guys have gone too far. And even though we didn't mean it, we all went to Sunday school. We know understand the reverence that image and that scripture has. But like I say, we weren't trying to comment on the scripture or Jesus or God, and yeah.
Yeah, I was telling a colleague earlier that I remember being in high school, and a peer of mine had submitted an essay critiquing Brotown, and it made the yearbook. And I remember the line, it goes, Brotown perpetuates stereotypes of what it means to be Pasifika, that we're poor, dumb, and dependent on the dole. But for me, what was fascinating at the time that it sparked these in-depth conversations within Pasifika youth, especially in that age bracket when we were 13, 14, 15. Has that always been the intention of Naked Samoans, to spark these dialogues?
We're not trying to spark anything. We're just trying to tell stories. And we we have a full-on approach to comedy. You know, we have an indigenous approach. From the beginning, because we're all theatre actors, and we came from theatre, and the form of theatre that we all loved was that kind of form of clowning that's existed in Samoa and the Pacific for hundreds of years. And that is a full-on style, where there's no, take no prisoners, full-on, sacred cows are held up to the light, and then the show's over. Yeah. So it's never our intention to court controversy in order to get publicity or spread our message. It's just the stories we like to tell and the comedy we like to do, and the robust style that we do that with attracts criticism. And I mean, that's really mild. That's quite polite, that comment you read out. There's been way worse over the years, so it doesn't mean it makes this any more pleasant. I guess this is just the 2025 iteration of feedback that happens now.
But I guess it begs the question, excuse me, is there an unspoken rule when Pasifika creatives make it on the mainstream platform that we have to play it safe? We can't delve into the realities of what we're experiencing?
I don't know. Do you think there is?
I'm just basing my question on what I'm seeing online.
Yeah, I don't know. We can't control what people write online, and we're not trying to get them to write those things. We can only do our work and tell our stories, and I feel like we've been pretty consistent. But like I said, as soon as we knew this image was annoying a lot of people, we took it down. We didn't want to double down or make a stand for freedom of artistic expression. It wasn't about that.
So what do you have to say to our Pasifika creatives who are seeing what's happening online, and who are perhaps feeling reluctant to fully express themselves?
It just comes with being an artist. Everybody has their own internal compass, and you can watch Brotown. All 5 series are on YouTube, and that's a pretty clear indication of the sort of work we make and the sort of approach we take. And it's in our name. We're not the polite Samoans, we're not the mildly offensive Samoans. My advice to artists is just be yourself, be true to that. But also, we are part of a community, but sometimes our job as artists is to tell the truth, be reflective of what's happening. Not that I'm saying this was that, but you ask for advice, and I think just be you and do your art, and take care of yourself as you do it.
Yeah. And what's your message to those who have been offended or hurt by the poster?
We understand why you're offended and hurt, and that was not our intention. That's why we took the image down. It's there forever now. I think as long as people spread it, people will be enraged by it. But my message is, I guess, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And, maybe think about Jesus' teaching in John 8, verse 7. And, thank you for the feedback. We've heard it.
Thank you, Oscar, for your time. That's the end of our Talanoa. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Just support the New Zealand International Comedy Festival. There's a lot of rising New Zealand stars and also established stars making magic. Even though times are hard, maybe you need a laugh to help.
You can listen and watch the full interview on Pacific Waves at rnz.co.nz/Pacific. That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā soifua.